So with that, with those preliminary instructions, we're ready to proceed. Ms. Rudy, do you want to begin by giving me a brief opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. So this is an application for a protective order based on an incident that occurred in January of 2023, to be specific, January 23rd, 2023. The parties are currently married. We also have an underlying divorce. To be clear, and just a minor housekeeping matter, Mr. Solomos has filed an answer, and we do have a motion to strike on file for exhibits and hearsay contained within that, but we did not set that for hearing today. So I am advising the court of that. The history of this case, the parties are married. It's Kimberly Solomos and David Peter Solomos. They have one child, Marie, so she's just a baby. The parties have been married since 2018, and it's been a tumultuous marriage with Mr. Solomos having erratic and aggressive behavior throughout. It has all come to a head, as the evidence will show through our testimony, Your Honor, on January 23rd, where Mr. Solomos was arrested for assault causing bodily injury and family violence. That criminal case is currently pending. Primarily, Your Honor, we will be presenting with the court the underlying exhibits associated with that criminal case. There was an emergency protective order entered by a magistrate based off of that incident and arrest, and that was good through March of 2023 and expired on the 24th of March. So
my question is, why is it that we have that lag time? Why didn't you seek a protective order before the expiration of the emergency protective order?
Yes, Your Honor. So they didn't file for divorce until May. So she didn't seek our representation. I, to be candid, was not on this matter until recently. I just started working for this firm. So there was a previous attorney with our firm. But she obtained an attorney after the expiration of the emergency protective order, and Ms. Olmos can testify, based off of that concern that was no longer in place. So thereafter, we filed for divorce. After the incident, Ms. Solomos fled to Massachusetts to be with her family. Mr. Solomos was arrested from the incident and was in jail, so she was trying to flee in order at that time to get away before he was able to be released from jail. The parties have had minimal communication during that time. Mr. Solomos has an attorney in the underlying divorce who has been attempting to set a temporary orders hearing. And so we recognized that the emergency order protection was no longer in place, and realized that we needed to get the underlying application for a final protective order in place in order to protect her and the child from Mr. Solomos and having to come back to Texas, and worried that he's going to take the child based on his history of erratic behavior and substance abuse. And so that's why we're here today, primarily, Your Honor, to enter the protective order in place. I do have a proposed disposition of issues, and I can show that to the court. I do not believe it was filed, Your Honor, based off of just some miscommunication with our staff and the court, so I can have that filed. But essentially, we are requesting that a protective order be put in place, that there be a finding of family violence, that the protected persons include Ms. Solomos, Ms. Kimberly Solomos, and the child, Marie. We're requesting, Your Honor, that David Peter Solomos is enjoined from committing family violence, removing or harming any pets or companion animals, communicating with a family member or household or the family of the person or protected persons of the order, going within 200 yards of a protected person or their family or the residence, child care facility, or school where the child attends or goes to, and possessing a firearm, unless he's a peace officer, which he's not. And then we are also requesting attorney's fees associated with the protective order, Your Honor, in the amount of $5,576. And we are also requesting any relief requested by Mr. Solomos is denied.
Thank you. Mr. Solomos, now is your opportunity to give me a brief opening statement. This is not evidence. Anything you say in an opening statement is not evidence. You will be given an opportunity to testify if you choose to, but you can just tell me what you think the evidence will show and what relief you're requesting or not requesting?
So Kimberly has been a very bad alcoholic, spent the first 3 years of our relationship in inpatient rehabs. She has been violent from the very beginning, having been handcuffed by the police on 3 different times. She's
I don't think you have a pleading requesting any affirmative relief. The only thing that I'm here today hearing is her application for protective order. So I want you to address that and what relief you're asking me to give or not give. And then we're going to go into evidence until you're sworn in and everything you tell me is not evidence.
Okay. So the sum of it is she's always been violent. When the baby was born, I said that behavior cannot happen. And I stood my ground. She injured Marie. She gave her rancid formula and stool softener at 3 months old. So I wrote her a letter saying that she could no longer, or that I was going to monitor anything that she administered her, that family members couldn't be alone with her. I was very concerned. And I thought our marriage was strong enough that that storm could be weathered. But instead, what she did was a premeditated action with her mother to remove me. And then she took I had a pretty significant gun collection that she stole and her mother's boyfriend gave to somebody else, took my daughter, fled to Massachusetts, and did all this specifically so I wouldn't have the financial resources to defend myself, because that was all my valuables. I never in any way, shape, or form hurt her, and for certain not my daughter. Every action I've done was for the protection of both Kimberly and Marie. I would have given anything to protect them both. And so what I'm asking is that the court make her return, that my daughter be given, that I be given possession of my daughter, and that she either return my valuables or dollar amount in kind. And that some of it is this: I just want my daughter back. I understand Kim has decided to do this.
I think that's something that needs to be taken up in the divorce. So I'm only hearing the protective order today.
Okay, well, there was no violence, and it never has been, at least not from mine. Actually, I care for her like a nurse our entire relationship. So yeah, it's completely baseless. And I will do or sign or whatever you want me to assure that fact. But the intent is that I just want my daughter back, and the very least visitation.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rudy, if you want to call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we'd like to call Kimberly Solomos. Where do you currently reside?
I live with my mother in Mashpee, Massachusetts.
Where did you previously reside?
In Barton Creek in Austin, Texas, with my husband and my daughter.
When did you move to Massachusetts?
We left on January 25th of 2023.
And what was the reason for your relocation?
I was fleeing for the safety of my daughter and I from my husband.
When was that incident?
That took place on Monday morning, January 23rd.
Of 2023?
Of 2023, yes.
Can you describe the events of that day?
Yes. I had woken up between my usual wake up time, which is between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. And it was a Monday morning, so I was getting ready to do my usual morning routine before work, which was take care of my daughter. And I realized how cold it was in our apartment, and David hadn't come to bed that night, so he was out on the couch playing video games. I popped my head out to look at the thermostat, and it said it was 59 degrees. And then I went over and looked at the baby monitor, which also had a temperature gauge on it, which read at 54 degrees. I was extremely perplexed by how cold it was, and very nervous for my daughter because her and I both had bad head colds. And I alerted David to what the temperature was in the house. And I asked him permission if I could put the temperature up a few degrees while I nursed Marie. David became extremely irate and mad as he claimed the heater stuffed his nose up. And he proceeded to stamp around the house and went over to where the thermostat panel was and ripped it off the wall. I then shut the bedroom door to try to de-escalate the situation and went over to attend my daughter. I picked her up, wrapped her in an extra blanket, and climbed back into bed because it was very cold. I got under the comforter and began to nurse her. David was outside the door making coffee and smashing cabinets, cursing, calling me every swear word in the book. Sadly, this was a common occurrence, and it was a rough way to start a Monday morning when you're sick and trying to take care of a baby and you have to go to work. And David got really mad that I had shut the bedroom door. So he bursted open, at which point I then said to him in this exact tone of voice, I said, David, you know what? If the heat bothers you so much, why don't you get up, get dressed, get out of the house and go do something for once? And since David has been unemployed pretty much our entire marriage, this was a sensitive subject, and it infuriated him even more, to where he then came over to where I was nursing, grabbed my hair, pulled my head back, spat a huge wad of spit into my face, and then shoved my head over. At this point, I was terrified, and I knew Marie and I were in immediate danger. I was extremely scared, and I became immediately quiet. I didn't say anything else to try to provoke him. I was just sitting in bed, quietly crying. And as I mentioned, I was nursing my daughter, and I couldn't even wipe the spit off my face. David continued to storm around the room saying our marriage was over. He wanted a divorce. There was no reconciliation. I was a horrible wife, horrible mother, horrible person. And then he said that he wished he could beat me to the point where he spent the rest of his life in jail. At this point, again, I didn't say anything. I was terrified, and I knew I had to get Marie and I away safely and as soon as possible. So I was then texting my mother on my cell phone, which I was hiding under the covers, so David wouldn't see. And I was telling her what had happened and what I should do. And we were going back and forth with the idea that maybe I could ask David to leave, change the locks on the house, or me and Marie could leave. But David he never left the house. And if I had tried to pack a bag and leave with the baby, he would have physically blocked me. And he had made previous threats that if I had ever tried to take Marie without his permission, he would file kidnapping charges on me. So I knew that wasn't a safe plan. And
Ms. Rudy, we need to make this not just a narrative. This is supposed to be question and answer, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Did you leave the home?
Yes. So I called out sick that day from work. And as soon as Marie was down for her morning nap, I left the house to go on an exercise walk, which was a safe time for me to call the domestic abuse hotline for help.
And did they have you call the police?
Yes. So I was able to reach a detective on the phone, in which they advised me to call 911 dispatch and have the police come and meet me in a safe location where my husband wouldn't see.
Does anybody, I have an Amber Williams in the waiting room. Is anybody expecting an Amber Williams?
She's an attorney with my firm, Your Honor.
Do I need to admit her?
I'm not sure. I think
that's fine if I don't need to.
Just to observe. Yeah, it would have been just to observe.
She could go on YouTube and observe. I just wondered.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
What happened next?
4 separate police officers came and met me at the front of our apartment complex, which was a safe distance from our apartment. I told them everything that had transpired that morning and basically just said, I need help getting my baby and I away safely from my husband. What should I do? And they took matters into their own hands, and 2 of them left and went and arrested David, and 2 of them stayed with me.
After he was arrested, was he incarcerated?
Yes, I believe he was in jail until February 14th.
Your Honor, I have petitioner's exhibit number 1. May I share my screen?
Yes, you may.
Showing you what's been pre-marked as petitioner's exhibit number 1. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is the bail that was set for David, and it looks like his arrest.
Is this a document that you provided our office?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
How did you acquire it?
The sheriff's office sent it to me.
So it was from a governmental entity?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, we'd like to offer petitioner's exhibit number 1 into evidence regarding the order of commitment from the Sheriff of Travis County.
Scroll down and let's see what other pages are attached so that Mr. Solomos can see this. Keep scrolling down, please. All right. Mr. Solomos, do you have any objection to the admission of petitioner's exhibit 1?
No, I was arrested.
P1 is admitted.
Do you know how long Mr. Solomos was in jail for?
I believe it was until February 14th.
And so from the date he was arrested, that January 23rd date, until February 14th, it was your understanding that he was incarcerated?
Yes, he was.
And what specific date did you leave Texas?
I left as soon as possible, which was January 25th of 23.
And then after, I'll go ahead and stop sharing this. After he was arrested, did the sheriff's department contact you in any way or reach out or do anything else?
Yes, they had the domestic abuse victims group reach out to me for help and advice.
And what did your communications with them entail?
They advised me to do exactly what I had done. They told me to call Child Protective Services and to have a meeting with them, which is what I did. I then made sure it was okay for me to leave the state with my daughter, which they said, yes, you absolutely are, and you absolutely can. You're not going to be charged with kidnapping. They told me to change the locks on my house, which I didn't do because I knew David would be homeless otherwise. And then they told me to not communicate with him and to seek, help and family support, which is what I did by going and living with my mother.
Did they make you do anything else for their office?
I did have to fill out a victim's compensation as well, which I'm still waiting to hear back on. But no, of that, I don't believe I had to do anything else.
A victim's compensation, did you have to make a statement or?
Yeah, so I had to write a witness statement and then submit that.
Your Honor, if I may share my screen to show the court proposed petitioner's exhibit number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent it to you after the arrest?
Yes, I had to fill out that form and all of the information and send over all of the evidence I could.
And so this is your statement?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Your Honor, we'd like to offer petitioner's exhibit number 2 into evidence.
Ms. Rudy, at the top of that, didn't I see confidential? Are you sure you want to take a document that the prosecuting attorney has go down what label confidential and put it in evidence?
I can withdraw this exhibit, Your Honor, and have Ms. Olmos testify as to what her statement was.
Probably take it off the screen.
Okay.
She's already testified, so there's evidence that she was contacted by them. So.
Okay. Was anything put into place to protect you and Marie
Yes, an emergency protective order was granted.
Your Honor, I have a copy of that emergency protective order pre-marked as petitioner's exhibit number 3. May I please share my screen with that?
Yes.
Kimberly, showing you what's been pre-marked as petitioner's exhibit number 3. Is this the emergency protective order that you received from Mr. Salmos?
Yes, it is.
What did that order of protection require?
He was not allowed to communicate with me in any harassing or threatening manner. He couldn't come within a specific amount of distance from my place of work where I was residing.
Objection. Objection, Your Honor, that's incorrect.
Well, the document will speak for itself.
Okay.
But you shouldn't ask her about the document. And have you offered it?
Your Honor, we'd offer petitioner's exhibit number 3 into evidence.
Mr. Salmos, do you have any objection to the admission of petitioner's exhibit 3, the emergency protective order?
No, one was issued, but it sounds like what the
Okay. Petitioner's exhibit 3 is admitted.
Okay, Ms. Salmos, have you been in communication with Mr. Salmos since the incident?
I was up until Father's Day of this year, of 2023.
Okay, and how are you communicating?
We were communicating via text message and through the co-parenting app, Ocurrs.
Did your attorney instruct you to do that?
Yes.
When did you last communicate with Mr. Salmos?
Hold on, Mr. Salmos. Do you have an
Yeah. Can I object to when things are false and I have data that show?
You have to make a legal objection. You're saying something's false is not a legal objection. You will have an opportunity to cross-examine and to offer your own evidence. So you may object with a legal objection, but saying something's false is not a legal objection.
But so the app close, for example, all throughout this is just false. But
Your Honor,
the app close.
I object to his testimony.
Miss Rudy, hold on. He's trying to do an objection. So again, if you will have an opportunity to show what's not appropriate. So your objection at this point is overruled, Mr. Salmos. All right. And Miss Rudy, you should be careful about waiving her attorney-client privilege, asking about how was she, advised to do that by an attorney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did CPS get involved in this case at all?
Yes, in the beginning, and it was closed.
Can you describe any other concerning behavior of Mr. Salmos that escalated to this January event?
Yes. Well, throughout our entire marriage, he has been unemployed, which has been rough on us. And I have been the sole provider in every aspect of life, from providing shelter, healthcare, paying rents, all of our bills, buying our car that he's still driving, you name it. So I have noticed over the years that David has gotten increasingly more depressed, anxious, paranoid, and much more prone to outbursts and anger. This really escalated when I got pregnant in 2022. I think he was nervous to become a father, as he still hadn't gotten a new career, and there was a lot of pressure on him. And I did my best to try to comfort, provide love and support for him during this time. I continued to work. And even though he promised to have a job by the time the baby was born, that still hadn't happened. So I went back to work after maternity leave, which I was happy to do. And I continued to provide for us. And it seemed that instead of David trying to work harder and apply for more jobs, he became more isolated, started playing about 20 hours of video games a day. He wasn't working on his data science portfolio and applying to jobs like he said he
Ms.
was.
Thomas, I'm just going to stop you real quick. Can you just identify some specific incidences where Mr. Solomos has been violent in the past, or these outbursts you've been in fear?
Yes. Back in 2020, I had melanoma surgery on my rib cage, and I had about I'd say about 6 inches down to the muscle of skin removed. And I was awake throughout the whole procedure. And I had taken a medication prior to the procedure that the doctor had prescribed me. And I didn't tell David about it because he has a history of abusing opioids, and he gets extremely controlling over specific medications I was allowed to take. And when he did find out that I had taken the pain med before the surgery, we were in the car when this happened, and he started driving extremely recklessly down back roads. He was going about 70 miles an hour, smashing on the brakes, swerving so that I would slam into the console, slam into the door. And it was hours after I had surgery. I was in a lot of pain, and it was, purposely hurting me, but without physically laying his hands on me. And he used the car as a way to hurt me a lot of times.
Just make claims like this without any.
That's not a legal objection, Mr. Solomos. You will be able to testify and tell me if that you don't believe that's accurate. All right. All right. Go ask another question, Ms. Rudy.
Yes, Your Honor. Did these car events happen often?
Whenever we were in the car together and David was mad at me, he drove very sporadically and dangerously to scare me and to intimidate me.
Has he done this with Marie in the car?
He has not done it with Marie in the car, thankfully, no.
You mentioned you work. What is your job?
I work for an architectural design firm in downtown Austin. I'm the executive assistant there.
How long have you had that job?
It'll be 3 years in February.
Okay. You mentioned earlier in your testimony regarding the incident we're primarily here on today. You mentioned you had to ask permission to change the temperature in the house. Is that as you testified?
Yes.
So you regularly have to ask permission to just change the temperature on the thermostat?
Yes.
Are there any other behaviors like that where you have to ask permission for Mr. Solomos?
Yes. Feeding our baby was a huge one. I had pretty serious 2 big breast surgeries, so it was hard for me to produce breast milk. And David made it clear that he only wanted Marie to be fed breast milk when she was born. And my milk was slow to come in, and I was worried she was hungry, which she was. And I wanted to supplement with formula as well and do a combination of breast milk and formula. When we went to the pediatricians, they gave us a sampling packet of formula. And when we got home, David took that sampling packet and smashed it into the trash can and said, if you ever feed this poison to our daughter, we'll have serious issues. So I was really stressed out the entire time trying to feed our daughter. He was very controlling over my body and basically dictated how many times a day I had to pump. And when I did try to talk to him about my concerns that it wasn't enough and can we please try formula, it's okay. The doctor, told us that it's perfectly fine. This was always the point of contention and always led to extreme anger and a lot of verbal abuse from him.
You mentioned Mr. Solomos has issues with opioid use. Is that correct?
Yes. He's had a problem with opioids. From what I gathered, seems to date back to a shoulder and stomach surgery he had in his 20s.
And to your not, have you seen him take these opioids?
I have. He has taken some opioids that I had post surgeries, but they weren't in large quantities like he used to take. But I was under the impression before I married him that he had stopped using hard drugs, as he went to an inpatient rehab facility as well.
I'm sorry, Ms. Solomos, I'm going to interrupt you. Ms. Rudy, I need you to focus on family violence. All of this may very well be evidence that needs to be heard at a temporary orders hearing. I need you to focus on any other acts of family violence, and particularly as relates to Marie, since you're asking me for a protective order for both Ms. Solomos and the child.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Has Mr. Solomos been violent around the child, Ms. Solomos?
Yes. On a daily basis, he was very controlling about Marie's feeding schedule. And if I ever tried to suggest something or say, David, Marie's giving me hunger cues, can I feed her now? He would say, no, it's not time to feed her yet. You can't feed her until 11 when you go to work. So she'll take a nap. And I basically would have to feed her whenever he said it was okay. Otherwise, he would scream, call me every curse word in the book right in front of my daughter. And he would do this also while I was nursing her. And I don't think that's pretty healthy for a newborn baby to hear. And also the stress on my body it caused.
Were you
awful.
in fear for your safety?
I was in fear for my safety, and it was so bad. And I felt so trapped and hopeless, and like I could not take care of my daughter. I mean, I was suicidal at times. It was so scary and so hard for me to deal with. And I felt so trapped by him.
How old was Marie at the time of the incident?
She was 4 months old.
So have you basically just kept Marie in your care around him?
Yes. Well, until I left, yes, she was in our care. But I did go back to work. So she would be in his care in the afternoons when I was in the office.
Were there any incidences that you became aware of while he had care of Marie alone?
One of my biggest concerns was that he was trying to force an infant on a schedule, which is not ever going to happen. Instead of taking cues from her, he wanted to basically train her so that she would follow his schedule. And that required feeding her at specific times instead of when she was actually hungry. And he would feed her a very large quantity of milk at once in hopes that it would put her to sleep so that he wouldn't have to take care of her and he could go play his video games or do his data science project. Instead of, reading books, engaging with her, taking her for walks, doing healthy parental activities with her, he just wanted to force the schedule on her so he didn't have to take care of her. And then when I got home from work, it was my problem.
But were you in fear of her safety during those times?
I was more in fear of her health. I don't think David would have physically harmed her in an abusive way, like hit her or hurt her like that. But the way he was trying to control her feeding and nap schedule and forcing it was really alarming and just not what you do. It's just basic parental instincts. I don't know. So,
okay. Mm-hmm. And so are you asking the court today to grant an order of protection for the safety and welfare of you and your child?
Yes, please.
And do you believe those requests are necessary to protect your family?
Yes, they do.
Do you also believe these requests are in the best interest of you and Marie?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Solomos, now is your opportunity to ask Ms. Solomos questions. You will not testify now. You will have a time to do that. You may ask her questions if you have any. You are not required to, but if you would like to, now is your opportunity to do so.
Mrs. Solomos? have I ever physically harmed you or put hands on you to harm you?
Yes, on January 23rd, you did.
All right. How many times did the police put handcuffs on you?
Not once. And when was this?
How many times did they do it?
There has never been an arrest or a police report for me assaulting you. So I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So how many times did they put the handcuffs on you?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
You may answer that question.
0 times.
How many times did you stab me with a knife?
0 times.
How many times did you hit me with the car?
Not once.
How many years of your inpatient rehab and tender loving kindness have I shown you?
My last inpatient rehab was in 2017.
So did you ever grab me by my necklace and my neck and punch me in the face and the head and hit me with objects and leave marks on my body?
No, never.
Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit B of my initial submission.
Well, hold on. Do you have it uploaded? You have to be able to show Miss Rudy. You're at a disadvantage because you're representing yourself.
Well, I submitted it. I submitted in my original response, and I was told this was going to be an in-person meeting. It wasn't until late last night that I got the email. So I don't even have a laptop. I just showed up to the courthouse today. So
I didn't know how we got this to be. Well, we're here on Zoom, but hold on. There's a motion for a Zoom hearing that was filed.
Yeah, I didn't even know about until last night,
Well, I'm looking at the temporary ex parte protective order that you were served with.
Yeah, last Thursday I got a letter that said, unless all parties agree in writing this hearing, that was TC announcements, and it said this meeting would be in person unless all parties agree. Well, I didn't agree, and then last night,
Hold on, you were served with an ex parte protective order that was signed on September 19th that says the hearing would be via Zoom. So
yes. Okay. Okay.
So you've made an appearance here. It's an issue. I can't.
Okay. So can I at least the submission that I did send, my original response, can I reference that?
You can ask me to take judicial notice of the file. Ms. Rudy is that as well.
Okay. Exhibit I. And I'm still through.
Your Honor, we object to all those exhibits.
Well, Ms. Rudy, there's a problem. First of all, I don't know. This was, you got an ex parte protective order that says via Zoom. All parties have to agree to a Zoom hearing under Rule 21D. So he's made
under the local rules, Your Honor?
No, under the rules of civil procedure. And as is on the announcement form. I mean, I see that a judge signed an order for you that said via Zoom, and you can do that. But so he's a pro se litigant. I can take judicial notice of the file.
Okay.
I do. Hold on. So I'm letting him pull up and share screen on Exhibit I so that maybe I can do that. You can see that.
Yeah. And actually, specifically, it's Exhibit K in this particular reference, but there's several.
Well, she has to be able to see it and see if she wants to object to it. Although, I mean, I've pulled it up and it's from 2017. Mr. Solomos, we are here on allegations of family violence that happened in 2023. You don't have a pleading asking for a protective order against Ms. Solomos. So the only thing that's before me is whether or not an application for protective order should be entered against you.
All I was trying to say is that she's had a history of severe violence, and never once did I ever raise a hand, or I've only defended. In fact, not only that, I took all of that all those years with tender, loving kindness and mercies toward her. And never once did I even cross my mind.
Let me we're going to do this on the right procedure. I find that your Exhibit K it's not going to be admitted. You may stick to the issues that are before me. So do you have any more questions for Ms. Solomos?
No.
All right. Ms. Rudy, do you have any redirect?
Ms. Solomos, were you ever violent with Mr. Solomos?
No.
And on that day of January 23rd, 2023, he was violent with you, correct?
Yes.
I have no more questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do you have any further evidence, Ms. Rudy?
I do have an attorney's fees summary prepared to request attorney's fees, Your Honor, that I would testify as a witness to, but I can do that after calling Mr. Solomos.
Well, then you may call your next witness.
Okay. We would call David Peter Solomos. And Your Honor, my apologies, I meant to mention this earlier, but we would just request if Mr. Solomos invokes his Fifth Amendment right, that a negative inference be drawn from that.
The court is aware of the rules of procedure. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Solomos, did you grab Ms. Solomos's hair on January 23rd, 2023?
No.
Did you spit in her face?
No.
Have you ever driven recklessly with the intent to harm her in your car?
No.
Have you controlled Ms. Solomos with how she can keep the temperature in the home?
No.
Have you controlled Ms. Solomos with how she feeds your child?
No.
Do you currently have criminal charges pending regarding this incident?
Yes, I do.
Have those been resolved?
No.
So you still have those charges against you?
Yes.
Are you aware of the emergency protective order that was in place?
Yes.
How long were you incarcerated for?
2 weeks.
Did you have to post bond?
Yes.
How much?
It was 5. Actually, I didn't. I got bailed out by an appointed member of DPS.
And so it's your testimony today that there was no proof of physical violence, or you didn't spit or pull her hair, and yet you were arrested and incarcerated for 14 days. Is that correct?
That's correct. In fact, CPS already issued a final ruling that she made false statements, reversed and ruled out the allegations against me.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Solomos, now is your opportunity. I'm not going to make you question yourself. You're representing yourself, so you may testify in a narrative form. I'm going to ask you to have your testimony pertain only to the issue that is before me, and that is Ms. Solomos's application for protective order.
Okay. CPS already did an administrative review. They issued their final ruling, reversing and ruling out the allegations against me. I think that you shouldn't even talk about the criminal one, but I never, not once, hurt her, nor entered in my mind to do so. I still love her and would have done and given anything to protect her. My daughter is the most precious thing in the world to me. I would do anything for her. And the cause of all this action is primarily because I told Kimberly her behavior toward me would not continue when Marie was born, because I was not going to have my daughter grow up and be so disrespected, to have her father be so disrespected and get trained and modeled that kind of evil behavior and so affect her life. And in November, her mother, I found an empty bottle of formula. So actually, I digress. Okay. We agreed that as long as Kimberly was producing milk, Marie was going to get her milk. It was the most precious thing in the world. She's going to get mommy's milk. Her mother, from the her very birth in the recovery room, right, has always hates even the mention of my God. And her exact words were, in the recovery room, circumcision is such a fucking stupid, outdated practice. It's mutilation. And then a minute
Objection,
later,
Your Honor. Relevance.
well, moments later.
Hold on. What is the relevance to talking about circumcision? You have a girl child.
Because we were in the recovery room and it was part of her conversation affirming that she should be getting formula immediately in the hospital. And the nurse had to interject and tell her, no, first of all, that's the parent's decision. And second of all, she needs mommy's milk. It was the same conversation. It was literally sentence to sentence. So then when we got home, we both agreed Marie was going to get mommy's milk, right? Her mother leaves a half open bottle of formula in the refrigerator. And I asked her about it. And she said, well, my mom poured it out to make you think that she had been given formula. I said, that's absolutely, it's as long as you're producing, she's getting mommy's milk. Well, I'm a chemist and a chemical engineer. And for about 2 weeks, Marie had what the doctor thought was severe colic. Okay. Screaming her little head off, her tummy was bloated, she was in a lot of pain, really bad diarrhea. And across the room, I could see that what Kim was feeding her in her bottle didn't look right. All right. It didn't look like a proper emulsion. So I took the bottle, I opened it up, and it was full-blown curdled rancid milk. And so then we did have an argument. And I asked her, well, what is this? And it turns out it was a formula, not from what the doctor had given, something else that she had gotten, and having an added stool softener. So for 2 weeks, she's giving and she didn't read the directions. She didn't properly care for the bottle. So she left it out on the counter. Right. So Marie got really, really sick and listened to my daughter scream her hair off because her mother was poisoning her.
Objection, Your Honor. I'm not sure the relevance of this.
Oh, Mr. Solomos, stop talking when she objects, please. Okay. Well, I think you've opened the door. We're going a little far afield, so that objection's overruled. But Mr. Solomos, again, you just need to focus on the issues before me, and that has to do with the allegations of family violence that have been lodged against you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm getting there. So what I did is I wrote her a letter, and that is exhibit. It was supposed to be a demand letter for care regarding Marie. And it is exhibit, I think it's C.
It's exhibit E, or instructions for care.
Yes, ma'am. And in that, I said that's it. Because she had harmed Marie. And look, I'm an older father, and I have only ever wanted family and children my whole life. And then to have my 3-month-old daughter be harmed, I sent that letter to set again, trying to establish boundaries because of the oral behavior of Kimberly and her family. And then I said essentially this: look, anything that she's administered, anything that she's fed, anything as such, I'm going to supervise it. I don't want anybody alone with her of our extended family because of what went to this, because of what fell this. And I thought that and I also said that that's it. Marie will never be taken out of the city that I'm in unless she's got to go to a doctor's appointment or something like that. And what Kim did was orchestrate, premeditate this thing to literally go contrary to everything that I had wanted for my daughter. And it was primarily because of this. She was frustrated that I hadn't found a job yet. If her family flat out said it, that, they had it, that, I couldn't get my career started. And the whole purpose of which I was trying to get something that was in tech so I could be home to take care of Marie and Kim, because I cared for Kim like a nurse. It was a constant thing. She's severely bipolar and OCD, has been on medication since, her whole life, and stopped driving as of 2019. And so anyway, long story short, I just wanted to be able to protect her and Marie and be able to create a home safe and where they can grow in the knowledge of their loving father and my faith. That was it. But her family are completely contrary to that. They could not stand the fact that I hadn't gotten a career going yet. This was a premeditated action that she flat out even told my family.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained. Okay. All right. Sustained. We need to stick to the topic.
Okay.
There's a divorce pending, and this all may be relevant in the divorce action. That is not what's set for me today. Why there haven't been any hearings in the divorce, I don't know, but there aren't any set today. And so I'm only hearing the protective order.
Okay. So I have only ever, with great love, tenderness, care, and mercies, loved them both. I have never, nor will I ever hurt them. There is this, we had an argument. I cussed her out. All right. I did. And I regret that. And I repented from that. But I never will ever hurt nor in any way physically, verbally abuse. And I did that because she already told me to leave. She said she had wasted too much time with me. She was listening to my mother, get out of my house, and she started cussing me out. So then I left the room. I thought it was just more of her verbal attacks. So I went and did what I normally do. I went and picked up Marie still in her crib. I turned on the heater, went back, got Marie, went and came back into the bedroom, gave her to Kim. And then I went back to my office, which doubled as Marie's room, and I got to work. 5 hours later, Kim calls down the hall. I'm going on a Bible study walk. A few minutes later, the sheriff's department calls and says, something's happened to your wife. I thought the worst that she got hit by a car, ran straight out the door, and I got arrested. So the sum total of the incident was a verbal argument, and that Marie was in the other room. I turned on the heater on my way to go get Marie, got Marie, brought her back to Kimberly, gave her to her, and that was it. 5 hours later, I get the call, where she says, I'm going on a Bible study walk, and the sheriff's department calls, and I thought she'd been injured, so I ran out the door and they arrested me. So,
anything further you want to offer, Mr. Solomos?
It's just, even after all this, Your Honor, even after all this she put me through, I love her, I forgive her, and I would have never hurt my daughter nor Kimberly, and she knows that.
Ms. Brady, do you have any further examination questions for Mr. Solomos?
No, Your Honor.
All right. All right. Do you rest, or do you have any further evidence?
I just have my attorney's fees, Your Honor.
I need to swear you in.
Yes. If I may share my screen, Your Honor.
Yes.
Showing the court what's been pre-marked as petitioner's exhibit number 5. These are a summary of estimated attorney's fees that were prepared by my office. I am Christine Rudy. I am an attorney in San Antonio, Texas. I was licensed in 2015. I was licensed in California in 2014. I've been practicing primarily family law since 2014 and 15 in Texas. I had my own practice for a while, and I've also worked for different firms. I am familiar with the necessary and requisite skills in order to prepare, prosecute, defend, present a case for application of protective order. I've done several protective order cases in the past. For my time on just the protective order up through yesterday was 3.7 hours at $4.45 an hour. And then the associated, we have contract attorneys that work with our firm. Their rate is $3.75 an hour. We have paralegals, and they're all itemized in our specific invoices and bills, which I also have available for the court, but are not attached to this particular exhibit. And for this hearing here today, we are requesting that the court order that if the protective order is granted, Mr. Solomos be ordered to pay the attorney's fees associated with the protective order in the amount of $5,576. And we'd offer petitioner's exhibit number 5 into evidence.
Is that the only exhibit you have as to your attorney's fees?
I also have our invoices, Your Honor. I just wasn't able to get them pre-marked, but I can show them to the court and get them marked.
I have a question. Is it your testimony that none of the time shown on those invoices was spent on the divorce case or communicating with anyone about temporary orders hearings or with any pleadings for the divorce?
It is my testimony, Your Honor. We have two separate matter numbers for both cases and a separate legal services contract for both cases. So, and we carefully review our bills before we submit them to the client. We also did a review to redact these bills. And so we've been very careful to delineate those two things. We do have different people that work on the matters, but I have reviewed both bills, and the client has seen not this last bill, but the previous bill and her other bill in her divorce matter. And I have also reviewed those two and specifically made revisions to ensure that those communications aren't crossing over. I will note, Your Honor, that to my knowledge, this doesn't contain anything. He did e-file his answer through his attorney for this matter. To the extent that that would somehow be confused on a bill, that could be something that might exist there. But other than that, they've been completely separated.
Thank you. Do you have any cross-examination, Mr. Salmos?
Yes, actually. So the reason I don't have an attorney now is because she took all my guns and property, gave them to somebody else. I'd like to know what she did with those guns, that collection. I at least could have sold them to be able to pay for an attorney. And I'd like to know what she did with those assets.
Well, I'm going to allow you to ask Ms. Salmos that question. You should have done it when you had her on there. But Ms. Salmos, what has happened to his guns?
Your Honor, when I had fled our home and moved to Massachusetts, I was able to get out of our lease agreement, and David was evicted from our apartment. And out of concern that he might not be able to get to the apartment and get his belongings and his guns, that we would have random people entering in, taking our items out. And I did not want them to get possession of 9 firearms. So I gave them to a friend for safekeeping. They're in a gun safe in Dallas, Texas. And we are more than happy to help him sell them. And we know exactly where they are. I did not steal them. I told David exactly where they were, and I didn't want them getting into the wrong hands. So that's why I did that.
Mr. Salmos, do you have any other questions?
Yes, I would like the contact information so I can go ahead and
hold on. We'll deal with that in a minute. Anything else?
No, ma'am. Well, I want to see my daughter. Is that appropriate to ask now?
It's not properly before me, although I may sua sponte pick a date for y'all to have a temporary orders hearing, because that needs to happen. But you've had an attorney, and I've looked at that file, and there have been lots of hearings set. I don't know why they haven't gone forward. I can't practice law for you or anyone else. But anything else regarding the protective order?
No, ma'am.
Right. Do you rest, Ms. Rudy?
I do rest. And Your Honor, if I may, we are working. I gave Mr. Dates for a temporary orders hearing yesterday. So we are setting a temporary orders hearing and have been conferring regarding a date.
How quickly?
I am unavailable next week, but and then the week after that, I have 2 mediations and 2 hearings. So I'm unavailable that following week. So I gave him the week of October 3rd, or the last week of October.
Well, that's not properly before me, but if a hearing doesn't get set pretty quickly, somebody ought to approach the court to get a hearing set more quickly than not. This has gone on since January. I mean, there wasn't a petition filed until May, but so. All right, Mr. Salmos, do you have any further evidence?
I do, just about so May 4th, her mother always made fun of my faith, and May the 4th be with you. She deleted my text messages on May 4th of last year. And I've got those texts because it just so happened I didn't get rid of when I got a new phone, I didn't trade in my old one. So it just so happened I was able to get a lot of that text. May 4th last year, she deleted my messages. May 4th of this year, she filed for divorce. And I would say that speaks to a deliberate action. That's it.
Anything further, Mr. Solomos, or do you rest?
I rest.
All right. Having heard the evidence, and including the testimony of both parties and the documentary evidence, I do not find that there has been sufficient evidence to enter a protective order that includes the child. There simply was no evidence of that. I do find that there was family violence committed on January 23rd of this year. And so I will grant the request that the protective order issue to protect Ms. Solomos. Now, I haven't seen your revised order, but you said it, and I don't see your proposed disposition. That didn't get to me anyway, but what you said to me, Ms. Rudy, is you wanted the protective order to prohibit him from communicating with any family member. I didn't hear any evidence about that, so I'm not going to grant that. But I will grant a protective order otherwise as pled. I do not find that there was sufficient evidence to award all of the attorney's fees requested because there was no evidence presented about the rates for the contract attorneys, the paralegal, et cetera. But I will award attorney's fees in the amount of $1,786.50, which is Ms. Rudy's time as shown on the summary in the exhibits, plus the process server fee.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Y'all need to get a temporary orders hearing set. Mr. Solomos, I can't on today. It's not set. We need some evidence, and we need to figure out what a possession schedule is going to be, who's going to be the conservator of this child. But Ms. Rudy, you need to get with Mr. Nguyen and get a hearing sooner than later. And I'm going to make a docket note that says that. I see in the divorce file that he's been trying to get hearings set since he filed one in August. Why he waited till August, I don't know. And then he filed another one, set another one on September 27th. It didn't happen. Now he's set another one, well, September 27th. So you all just need to proceed in an orderly fashion about that. All right.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that
now there's an issue, Ms. Rudy, about I need to serve Mr. Solomos with a protective order.
Yes.
Is that going to happen since you wanted to do this on Zoom?
Will I serve him personally with a protective order?
Well, Mr. Solomos, are you here in the courthouse? I take it.
I am.
Ms. Rudy, do you have an order prepared?
I do have one prepared. I just need to make sure it's per the court's ruling and take out anything that wasn't ordered.
Mr. Solomos, I'm going to ask you to come to my courtroom on the 11th floor at 11 o'clock. It's 10:38. I'll have somebody open it. We will get back on the record, and I will serve you in open court with that protective order. Ms. Rudy, I'm directing you to look at 21D. For an appearance, I certainly don't mind having somebody appear on Zoom, but there's some issues about.
Okay.
And if you go forward with a temporary orders hearing, you need an agreement or an order from the court for Ms. Solomos to appear via Zoom. Otherwise, she needs to be here in person.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes.
Right. Mr. Solomos, again, my courtroom is 11D. I'm the 419th District Court. I want you to be outside in the hallway at 11 o'clock, and we'll open the door, and I will get that served on you in open court. All right?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.